Hi guys, this is an S&P 500 technical analysis update for the 17th of May 2020. So, as we've been saying for a while now, for the last month and a half, stock market has bottomed, as we sort of mentioned here, and we're in this sort of melt-up phase. That is certainly the overall count that I have on the ES and the Nasdaq especially. So if we're just working 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 3 4 5 3 A B C D E 4, and now we're going to have this final blow off top. Now it's still quite bearish out there, which basically means that we're going to go higher short term. Because it's a melt up, I don't think you're going to get anything like a major ABC correction coming out of it. I think that's unlikely. In fact, that actually goes against the whole melt up. The whole point of a melt up is that the market is actually crashing to the upside rather than the downside. And if all of this is a completed one, which you can very much work the case that it is, if I just bring in the Elliot wave count. So if you say this is a 1, this is a 2, 3, 4, 5, then this is some kind of correction. But the S&P 500 likes to do these sort of flatty type patterns. If I just show you sort of here, bars pattern, where is it? So it tends to do these sort of flat type patterns as you can see here. And so something like this is just going to chop around. Next thing you know, we're definitely going to go to all-time new highs before the US election, which is what this was all about. But obviously it's all about buying the lows and selling high up. So in the group, we were discussing Apple, kind of been long since here really. So just out of the money call options have gone up 800% during this move. That's 800% in 41 days. Now, I still think Apple moves higher. Conservative target would be 400 eventually. And obviously, there's a chance it goes even a little bit higher than that. But that's the thing with these sort of moves. You kind of have to get in early. Now, ES, if all of that is a 5, then we're working some kind of flat. But as you can see, this is just shorts trying to force the issue. But if it was that easy, then, obviously this would happen. But that's not happening. So I think all the major selling has been done. And it's been done a while ago. So it's very much just a buy the dip market. Now, this could end up becoming more of a complex correction. So maybe you get something like an ABC into here. Doesn't look particularly impulsive. I mean, it could just shoot out of it and do this. But during the summer, you usually get that down period flatlining. So I wouldn't be surprised if for the rest of May and June, we stay confined within this range, which is very good if you know how to trade ranges. Obviously, that's something we go through in the masterclass when it gets released. But could do something like this, then like this, then like this, and then go higher. I can't imagine this completely going off on one to the downside. That's just highly unlikely. And yes, we go higher before the US election. Now, if I just bring up this Fibonacci, let's just say, argument's sake, that is a completed one. Your 38.2 is 269, 2629. So I suppose if it does drop, that will just be a very good time to sort of buy the dip if it gets as low as that. I'd be very surprised if it makes its way down this low, but if it does, that's just an even better opportunity. But like I said, it's the Nasdaq really holding up this market. So Nasdaq, we've been calling this low for quite some time. I mean, we've been long since here basically. So once again, Q options are up 700, 800, even 1,000% over the last 41 days. These were out of the money call options, which you could have purchased here for here, expiring 41, 50 days out. Now, still we're expecting this Nasdaq to go to 14k. So 14k is all the way, and we can barely fit it in the chart. Yeah, 14k something. So if all of this is some kind of one, it's probably just going to correct. But like I said, in a melt up, it's unlikely to get a severe ABC correction. Everyone chases a melt up like they did with the Nasdaq back in 99. So some kind of flat, but eventually we're going to go to all. I mean, we're basically there. So I said 90 days. We're pretty much already there. So yeah, we're going to go higher. Everyone's going to chase it. Now, what's interesting is none of the other markets are crashing. So I've been very bullish on 4 of those. Dollar is going to go higher. TLT is going to go higher. And gold I've been bullish on. Well, from a neutral / bullish perspective for at least the last couple of months. I mean, just doesn't want to sell off. So everything's going higher. I mean, even silver. believe silver was going to go to $20, as I told the group sort of here. So that's just a large flat pattern, isn't it? So, you know, you break the low, it's going to end up breaking the high. So as a minimum, silver is going to get to 18. What's this? High 19, maybe even here, complete some kind of ABC sort of thing. And Bitcoin, I mean, really, this is the least important market out of all of them. But if everything's melting up, then this is also melting up. So I've been back and forth only because it's 5 waves into here, but this is not a bull market. Nothing is. It's just the fact that everything's melting up. So you can include Bitcoin into this. So, you know, you can read all of that as a triangle. It's going to do this, then do higher. Could fill the gap at 12K, but it's unlikely these lows now get challenged if everything's melting up. I mean, for a long time in Bitcoin, I've been of the opinion it goes lower, but like I said, in the midst of a melt up, nothing makes sense. So you got some people who are bearish stock market, bearish dollar, bearish bonds, bearish gold, and then bullish Bitcoin. You got some who are a mix between all two, but really what's going on is that everything's melting up. Stock market, dollar, bonds, gold, silver, I suppose, to a certain extent, and Bitcoin. And really, Bitcoin it's only $120 billion market. So they've managed to move Apple. I mean, in 41 days, it was an 800% move in the options. But here, even if you have just bought the common, what was the common move? I believe it was around 50%. Yeah, it's pretty much 50% in about 30 days. So that, I mean, how much is that? It's a $1.4 trillion. So they've managed to move Apple by basically $400 billion in 30 days. So really moving Bitcoin is not that big a deal. So I do think Bitcoin also melts up with the stock market. Now, is there anything else that we need to say on the ES other than what I've just said? And yeah, people are very bearish here. In fact, people are more bearish here than they are here, as I showed to the group with a chart that really explained the sentiment. I mean, people are very bearish. We're at 40 here on the fear and greed index, but actually a lot of these sentiment parameters that I look at, they're even more bearish than they are here, which is really surprising. That usually never happens. You know, after a 30% move, you would expect some of the shorts to cover, but they haven't. And a lot of the hedge funds, they're not actually participating in this move at all. So everything's set up here for this summer to basically just frustrate the shorts, go sideways, and all they're doing is just adding fuel to the eventual parabolic move, which we're going to get. So is there anything else I need to add here? Are there any gaps? You always want to watch out for these gaps, because a futures gap, you know, a 24-hour market is shouldn't really have a lot of futures gaps other than the Sunday night open. So you see here, this gap got filled. I said to the group this settlement was going to get tagged, and it did. So really a lot of the repair has been done, and a lot of these lower gaps have been filled, which is actually the signs of a healthy market when these gaps get filled on the way up. So I can't imagine the ES retracing too much. If you bring up the cash, yeah, there's a big gap here, but that's more of a that's a professional gap that occurred here. So those pro gaps, they don't have to get filled. I'd be very surprised if the ES and the S&P make it as low as this, but if they do, that's an obvious buying opportunity. But that just seems too much of a drop. This gap got filled, this got filled, this got filled, all of this got filled. So all of these cash gaps are getting filled. So really, it's just a sideways range setting up the move, you know, for the move higher. And this market is not done yet. There will be a day when this market's done, but I'd be surprised if that day comes before the US election. After the US election, that's when we obviously have to keep a close eye on things. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I don't think there's anything else to cover. Wait a minute. I wanted to cover the Qs. The Qs had a gap here as well, which is why they rejected out of here. And that's very, very normal. So all we've got here is just the fact that we went into this gap. So the first move into a gap is usually a rejection. We've ended up filling the gap to the tick. So that was a very obvious sort of move there. Now it's just backing and filling. But see, this gap got filled. This got filled. This is the professional gap that we're referring to. This doesn't have to get filled. Pro gaps don't get filled. It takes a while for them to get filled. As in, we go to 14k and then maybe on the way back down, then we're going to end up filling that gap. I'd be very surprised. But all of these higher gaps, these have all been filled. So even with the Qs, I can't imagine this dropping too much. I mean, the market is just too bullish, and you know, you've got this huge capital flight going into the States. Now, let me just quickly bring up the VIX. Yeah, and the VIX is generally, it's downtrending, which is a good sign. You know, that's quite normal. So that's, you know, we're going to go into this period of low volatility. There's this gap here, so I wouldn't be surprised if eventually, fine, there might be a bit of short-term correction after a huge move maybe, but eventually this goes down and we set up this big move in the stock market. This is the stock market, but by the way, this is not the VIX. I can't imagine the VIX going back to 90 anytime soon. It's just falling, and it has been falling for a considerable time. So this is always something just to keep an eye on. And as you can see, probably going to end up basing here somewhere between 12 and 21, and then we you know, set up the next move, which obviously is going to be down, but we're not there yet. We're nowhere near there yet. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Nasdaq has topped, 0 being extremely bearish, you know, I would say we're at 3. Obviously, short term, we might get a bit of a sideways move, whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, there's still plenty more people to jump onto this train. And, you know, until we get this 8, 9, 10, Bitcoin 20k, silver $50, that type of level of euphoria, this market is still going to go higher. And you'd be surprised how high this Nasdaq is going to go. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.